Hello students and Sibelius users in particular. I'm going to share with you today two of my favorite plugins in the program. These are the Explode plugin and the Move to Other Staff plugin. And I think these two in particular are very useful for the completion of Project 3. And with the Move to Other Staff, really any situation in which you find you want to use drop voicing. So let's get started. I've just sort of set up a phrase here, and the template is the Project 3 template. I'll play this for you really quickly. You can see I've got my sketch line, and I've got a label here for a dominant approach. Okay, so I've just got this G minor 9 harmony, and then a D with like a flat 13 and a flat 9. Again, the idea is that I want not to repeat any of my notes. Okay, our approach techniques help us to not repeat notes. And then sort of a simple ending, and we're just using double lead technique throughout all of this. And I'm going to show you this Move to Other Staff plugin right here, because I'm going to say, I've got a skip here. It goes, relatively high-ish, and I want to switch to drop 2 there. And there's an easy way of doing that using this plugin. So I like to assign these plugins to particular keys or shortcuts. You could do that yourself if you wanted to from just in the main Sibelius menu and preferences. And then you've got your list here, obviously, but there's keyboard shortcuts. And then if you hop to the category of plugins, the two that we're talking about today here are Explode, and I've assigned this to Shift X, just because X is obviously going to be already occupied. And so Shift X is my key command for that. And then for the other plugin we're talking about here, which is Move to Other Staff, I've got this actually mapped just at the tilde key, just beneath Escape. Anyway, it is possible to do that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this phrase that's in my sketch line. You'll notice that I've got the dynamics here already, and the reason I've done that is it's going to save me steps having that. As a matter of fact, since I'm only going to be exploding from one staff at a time, okay, so in other words a treble and then the bass, it would be useful for me to have my dynamic content beneath the bass clef of this sketch line as well. So what I'm going to do here is I hold Command, could be Control for PC users, and I sort of lasso all of my dynamic information, which includes the hairpin. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, and then I'm just going to paste that, which I can get rid of later on using filters or just using the same technique I just showed you, which would be to go like this and then hit delete. So what I'm going to do now is I want to basically blow all this material out onto staves, and of course our staves are not in the sequence of top to bottom as far as the ranges go. That is to say that normally our top note's going to go to trumpet, second note from the top is going to go to alto sax, tenor sax, trombone, and bass sax generally. So what I'm going to do here is explode out to 3 sort of non-contiguous staves, right? You can see they're not contiguous here. So I'm going to select this content here, and I'm just going to do the first bar because I want to show you something else. I'm going to do the first bar, and I'm going to use my shortcut, which again is Shift X for Explode. If you don't have it mapped to a shortcut, you can go to Note Input, and then it's under Plugins here. So under the Composing Tools, you've got the option to Explode there, and you can see my shortcut, and then Move to Other Staff is underneath Simplify Notation. So we've got this selected, and obviously you can see I've got that label there, that diatonic label. That's going to get copied over as well, and again, we can blow that off afterwards, but we need to show that in our sketch line, which is why it's there. So I've also indicated all the articulations because I want to save myself as many steps as possible. Let me show you this. So Shift X gives me Explode into, well, yes, 3 staves is correct, but just to show you these settings, I want to make sure that copy text lines and symbols from all voices is selected because I want to have that dynamic information showing as well. So I'm making sure that that's selected now, and then I say OK. And now I can proceed with the actual exploding after I tell Sibelius which staves I want these to end up in. So by default, it's going to want to assign a new destination staff, but we're not going to do that. We're going to select the radio button here, use existing staves as destination, and I want these specific staves in this order, and it just happened to put it in the correct order, but usually it's going to go something like alto sax, tenor sax, and bari sax, but since I was playing with it a moment ago, I think that's why it gave me trumpet, alto sax, and tenor sax, which is what I want. And now I hit OK, and this is where the cool thing happens. So you can see here that that just blows all of that material onto the corresponding staves. And we can do that down here also. So I'm just going to select this first measure, and I'm going to Shift X, explode this time into 2 staves. I don't need to revisit the settings because this box is still checked, okay? But I hit OK, and then again here for part 1, now I'm going to select my trombone as the top destination, and then the baritone saxophone for the bottom. I hit OK, and then more magic. Look at that. So obviously this fingering text, this DT for the dominant approach, needs to be stripped away from these staves. You know, it's not too time consuming just to select them all and then delete them that way. What you could also do though is you could come through, you could actually make a selection of all of these staves, and then you could go to your home and your filter, and I like to use the advanced filter for this, and then go to text under view, and then deselect notes and chords, check the box for text, and then I'm going to go none, and then I'm going to go and find fingering, and then I'm going to say select. And now you can see those are all selected. So it's probably something you'd want to do at the end of your project or just before you submit it. So now I can hit delete, and that's all gone. So I've got my first bar there. Well, what about my second bar? Why didn't I do that? Well, it's because I wanted to show you this other plugin, which is the Move to Other Staff plugin. So let's say that you want to go from 4-way close, as we have here in this first bar, to a drop situation. Let's just say drop 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that second note from the top, which is this G flat here in my sketch, and I'm going to use that shortcut. Okay, again, if I wanted to, I could get there from Note Input, Plugins, Move to Other Staff. I just think it saves time to have a shortcut. So I do Move to Other Staff, and now you can see that that's actually what moves that note to the other staff. I'm going to undo that because I want to show you one more thing which might be useful as you're doing some note entry, which is if you've got, I've just selected this quarter rest in the treble clef, if you've got that staff selected, you can always move to the next staff by holding Alt-Option-Command or Alt-Option-Control and then using the up and down arrows. Okay, you can see now that the next quarter rest is highlighted. So the other thing I was going to say is there's one problem or one catch with this Move to Other Staff. For whatever reason, Sibelius doesn't let it work well with whole note values, and that probably won't matter because most of what you're harmonizing will be eighth note material anyway, but just expect that if you try doing this with a whole note, you're going to get all kind of weird stuff. So drop 2. All right, let's select that second note from the top, and of course I'm going to be dropping it an octave, so I'm going to use my shortcut Command or Control down arrow, and now I've got, you know, collision, whatever. That G flat is now in the lower octave, and now I just use that shortcut, which for me is tilde, and bingo, there it goes. So now that that note has been dropped down an octave, I'm going to obviously want to select and move this top note from the bass clef up an octave. It's the same shortcut. I don't even have to use an arrow key. So I've got my D flat selected here, and I just use my shortcut again, Move to Other Staff, and bingo. Now I've got a drop 2 voicing. So what I could do now is same thing I did before. So I'm going to select this top staff in that bar, and I'm going to do my Shift X or explode, exploding into 3 staves. Okay. And as you can see here, I need to remake this selection. There's a similar function called arrange. You can see that actually up above here. It's a little more advanced, but I just find that this is the simplest to get going fast. And then tenor saxophone. So, okay, there we go, looks good. And then here, same thing again, exploding into 2 staves. And we've got our trombone on top and our bari saxophone on the bottom. Say okay. There we go. And if I wanted to play it back now, I could certainly do that. Obviously, I'm going to want to remove this dynamic material from the sketch. We don't need to have it there twice. We really don't even need to have it there at all. Like in Gary Lindsay's book, for example, you don't get any dynamic information there. Partly because you're cluttering things up. But it's not the end of the world if you leave it in one spot there. Let's see what we've got here. A little playback. Sounds like this. Alright, so obviously, I had some reinforcement there from the acoustic bass as well. But hopefully something useful for your workflow as you work on your Project 3.